All right, so today we're diving deep into black soldier fly farming.
We're going way beyond the surface level stuff here.
Exactly, like way past those generic Google searches.
Right, like everybody's got the same basic info.
But we're lucky enough to have this Q&A with Joakim Marjanen.
Oh yeah, the CEO of Mana Insect.
He drops some serious knowledge bombs.
He really does. Like, we're talking real nitty-gritty details.
Stuff you don't find just anywhere.
No.
So we're going to unpack some of his insights,
Let's do it.
like about the optimal conditions for each stage of BSF development.
Oh, that's a big one, right?
Huge, huge, huge. Like, not just for the larvae in general.
You mean like breeding, rearing, nursing, pupation, the whole 9 yards.
Yeah, each stage has its own sweet spot.
Its own little Goldilocks zone.
Exactly. And he kind of blew my mind a little bit with the substrate temperature thing.
Oh, yeah.
We always hear about air temperature, right?
Right.
But turns out it's not as critical for the larvae as we think.
Huh.
It's all about that substrate temperature.
Oh, that's interesting. I hadn't thought about that.
And then there's the humidity, which, we see all this advice about hitting certain levels.
Yeah.
But what's more important is understanding why.
Right.
Like in those early days, why do we need that high humidity?
To keep things from drying out.
Well, yeah, but specifically to prevent the substrate from crusting over.
Oh, so the little guys can actually get to their food.
Bingo. Those tiny larvae can't break through that crust.
Makes sense.
And speaking of messing with their environment, Marjanen had some choice words about adding water to outdoor BSF farms.
Ooh, that's a touchy subject, isn't it?
Well, he basically says it's a sign you messed up your setup from the get-go.
Oh,
Like, ideally, you want to start with a wet substrate and let the larvae regulate things themselves.
interesting. So no more just dumping water in there?
No, sir. Apparently, that freaks them out.
Really?
They think something's wrong and they'll be trying to escape.
Oh, like a mass exodus.
It shows how sensitive they are to those sudden changes.
That's crazy.
And that brings us to substrates.
The food, right?
The good stuff. Now, we've all heard that BSF larvae will eat anything, right?
Yeah, they're like little composting machines.
But Marjanen sets the record straight.
Oh,
Highly fibrous materials, not their friends.
really? I would have thought.
It makes sense, though, when you think about how they feed.
Have that.
They need that liquid-like consistency so they can, suck up their food.
Ah, okay. So, like, wood chips are probably a no-go.
Not the best choice. And this is where Marjanen's practical approach really shines.
How so?
He's all about testing, not theorizing.
Ah, so less talk, more action.
Exactly. Find a recipe, try it out, see what happens.
Don't get bogged down in the hypothetical.
Exactly. And he even had some interesting points about mold and heavy metals.
Oh, like contaminants in the substrate.
Yeah. Mold, surprisingly, can actually be beneficial for the larvae.
Really?
But heavy metals, those are trickier,
Yeah, I can see how that would be a problem.
especially depending on what you're planning to use the larva
Yeah.
for, right?
Right.
Now, all this talk about ideal conditions kind of makes you appreciate those climate-controlled units.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Consistent environment, less hassle.
Marjanen actually told this story about how unpredictable weather can make recipe testing a total nightmare.
Oh, I bet. Like you think you've nailed it down and then boom, a heat wave.
Exactly. And you're back to square one.
Frustrating.
So that stability is super crucial.
Especially if you're trying to scale up, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Or even if you're just trying to, fine-tune your process.
Makes sense.
And here's the kicker. He claims you can build a climate-controlled unit for under 10 grand.
Wait, seriously?
Yep. Mana Insect actually has open-source plans and videos on their website
No way.
showing you how to do it.
That's amazing.
I know, right?
Like, that changes the game for so many people.
Especially smaller operations or folks in developing countries.
Yeah, suddenly this tech feels way more accessible.
Totally. Now let's tackle the batch versus continuous feeding debate.
Ooh, that's a good one.
Marjanen is firmly team batch.
Really?
He argues it's always the optimal choice.
Huh. Why is that?
His reasoning makes sense, though. Continuous feeding, it's constantly disrupting the environment.
Oh, I see. Keeping things in flux.
And that can actually slow down their growth.
Makes sense.
You use the example of pH levels being thrown off when you're always adding new food.
Yeah. Constantly shifting the balance.
Plus, there's that added benefit of minimizing losses if something goes wrong.
Oh, right. Containment.
With batch, you're not risking your entire operation on one continuous cycle.
That's a good point. So, okay, we've got our trays, we've got our ideal conditions dialed in, but how do you actually dose those tiny larvae?
Right. You can't exactly count them out one by one.
No, they're way too small for that.
Marjanen suggests using nursing boxes.
For what?
for weight-based estimation.
Ah.
You start with a guesstimate, adjust based on what you see in your sample trays after a few rounds, and boom, you're good to go.
That's pretty ingenious. A practical solution for something so complex.
Right. And speaking of measuring, there's this big focus on larva size.
Yeah, like bigger is better.
But margin reminds us it's all about biomass yield.
Right, the total weight, not just individual size.
Doesn't matter if you have a few giant larvae or tons of tiny ones.
As long as the total biomass is the same.
Exactly. At the end of the day, it's all about the bottom line.
It makes sense. You've got to look at the big picture.
So we've covered the farming side.
The nitty-gritty.
Now let's talk business. Where are the real opportunities in BSF farming?
Show me the money.
Well, Marjaden's advice is spot on here.
Okay, I'm listening.
Find free or low-cost biowaste sources and target markets with easy entry.
So, low overhead, high demand.
Precisely. He specifically mentions backyard chicken hobbyists and wild bird feed.
Ah, interesting. Niche markets.
They're great starting points. You can get a foothold without needing a massive investment up front.
A smart way to build a business, especially in a field that's still relatively new.
Exactly. Start small, prove your concept, then you can start exploring those more ambitious options.
Like what?
Well, he's not saying those other hyped-up applications aren't viable.
You mean like biodiesel production and chitin extraction?
Yeah, stuff like that. But he's bringing us back down to earth a bit.
Right. Reminding us they require a lot of investment and scale.
Exactly. Now, speaking of sustainability, we can't forget about frass,
Frass.
the BSF poop.
Oh, right.
It has potential as a fertilizer.
I've heard that.
But Marjanin admits the market isn't quite there yet.
How so?
There's a lack of standardized data on its effectiveness, and traditional fertilizers are still relatively cheap.
So it's a tough sell right now.
Yeah. But he's optimistic about the future, especially as we learn more about frass and its unique properties.
And as the demand for organic fertilizers grows, right?
Absolutely. So it could be a lucrative byproduct down the line.
Definitely potential there. It's interesting how this one Q&A with Marjanin has opened up so many different avenues.
I know, right?
From the nitty-gritty of rearing conditions to the global protein market.
What stands out to me is his pragmatism.
Yeah, he's not just chasing trends. He's got a plan.
He's grounding his vision in practical, achievable steps.
And that's what makes his insights so valuable.
Whether you're a small-scale farmer or a big-time investor.
He's not just saying, go after the latest thing. He's saying, understand the system.
Find your niche. Build a solid foundation.
That's how you unlock the true potential of BSF.
Not just as a novelty, but as a genuine force for change.
I like that, a force for change.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here.
Yeah, we have.
We talked about the ideal conditions for raising BSF, the nuances of substrate selection.
The batch versus continuous feeding debate.
We even explored the business side.
Finding those promising market opportunities.
And the challenges of competing with traditional protein sources like soy.
It's a lot to take in.
But you know what? Even with all that, we've only just scratched the surface.
There's always more to learn.
There are still so many unanswered questions, so many avenues to explore.
And that's what makes it so exciting, right?
This field is constantly evolving, with the potential to transform how we think about food production.
Waste management?
Even the future of agriculture itself.
It's a pretty amazing little UG.
It is.
Yeah.
And it makes you realize sometimes the smallest creatures can have the biggest impact.
That's a good point.
And even in the face of global challenges, there's always room for innovation.
And hope.
So Marjanin's insights have definitely given us a lot to chew on,
They really have.
both in terms of the practicalities of BSF farming and the broader implications for a sustainable future.
It's clear that BSF has earned its place at the table.
It's not just a fad anymore. It's a key player in the sustainable protein landscape.
And as research and innovation continue, we can expect to see even more applications emerge.
Beyond animal feed,
Fertilizers, bioplastics, maybe even cosmetics.
the possibilities seem endless.
It's an exciting time to be following this field.
I'm definitely walking away with a sense of optimism.
Me too. And for our listeners who are buzzing with inspiration,
I encourage you to explore further.
check out those open source resources from Mana Insect.
Maybe even consider starting your own small-scale operation.
Who knows?
You might be the one to unlock the next big breakthrough.
That's a great thought.
Until then, keep those minds curious and stay tuned for more deep dives into the world's most fascinating topics.
Always more to discover.
It's pretty amazing how BSF could be competitive with soy.
Right. Like if we can hit that price point, it's game on.
That makes you think about where BSF fits into everything.
You mean like the big picture?
Yeah, like, is this just a niche thing or is it the future of protein?
Well, and that's where it gets interesting.
Because,
Marjanohan, he doesn't sugarcoat anything.
oh yeah, he's straight up.
He's actually pretty skeptical about some of the hyped up BSF applications.
Like what?
You know, like biodiesel or chitin extraction.
Oh, right. Those are the, like, super high-tech applications.
Yeah, exactly. And he's not saying they're not viable, but...
He's definitely bringing us back down to earth.
Right. Like, hey, those require massive scale.
And investment.
Yeah, tons of money.
So he circles back to those niche markets.
Remember, like, the backyard chickens?
Oh, and the wild bird feed?
He sees those as a smart stepping stone.
Yeah, it's like, prove your concept before you go building a factory.
Exactly. Generate some income, hone your processes, build up some capacity.
And then, maybe, you take on those bigger, riskier ventures.
It's a much more sustainable approach.
Especially in an industry that's still finding its feet, right?
Absolutely. So, speaking of sustainability, we got to talk about frass.
Oh yeah, the frass.
There's definitely a lot of untapped potential there.
For sure. I mean, it's basically free fertilizer.
Right. But Marjanohan admits the market isn't quite there yet,
In terms of...
like widespread adoption.
Oh, okay.
He points to a couple of key hurdles.
Like what?
One, the lack of standardized data.
You mean on its effectiveness?
Yeah, like how does it actually compare to traditional fertilizers?
Right.
And then two, the cost.
Traditional fertilizers are still pretty cheap.
Exactly. So it's a tough sell right now.
But he also sees a growing awareness. The need for sustainable, organic alternatives.
Yeah, and frass fits right into that narrative.
So maybe we're just in the early stages.
I think so, like as the market matures.
And consumers become more discerning.
Yeah, they start demanding more sustainable products.
Frass could become a significant revenue stream.
Absolutely. It's like this hidden treasure just waiting to be unlocked.
It's funny how this one Q&A with Marjane opened up so many different avenues.
Oh, I don't know, right?
We went from like the tiny details of rearing conditions
Just to complexities of the global protein market.
It's wild.
Yeah.
And what really stands out to me is his pragmatism.
Oh, for sure.
He's not just a wide-eyed idealist.
He's got his feet on the ground.
He's grounding his vision in like practical, achievable steps.
And that's what makes his insights so valuable.
Totally. For anyone looking to get involved in BSF, like,
whether you're a small-scale farmer or a big investor.
He's not saying chase the latest trends.
He's saying understand the system.
Find your niche, build a solid foundation.
And that, I think, is the key.
To unlocking the true potential of BSF.
It's not just a novelty.
It's a genuine force for change.
I love that.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground.
We have.
We talked about the ideal conditions for raising BSF.
The substrate selection, the whole batch versus continuous feeding thing.
We even explored the business side.
Identifying those market opportunities.
Yeah.
And the challenges of competing with soy.
But even with all that, we've only scratched the surface.
There's always more to learn.
There are still so many unanswered questions, so many avenues to explore.
And that's what makes this field so exciting.
It's an ever-evolving landscape.
With the potential to transform how we think about food production.
Waste management.
Even the future of agriculture itself. It's pretty amazing.
It is. And it reminds you that sometimes the smallest creatures can have the biggest impact.
That's true.
Even in the face of these huge global challenges, there's always room for innovation.
And hope.
Marjanohan's insights have given us a lot to think about.
They really have.
Both the practicalities of BSF farming and the bigger picture of a more sustainable future.
BSF has earned its place in the sustainable protein world.
It's not a fad anymore. It's a key player.
And as research continues, we're going to see even more applications for BSF.
Beyond animal feed, even.
Fertilizers, bioplastics, you name it.
The possibilities are vast.
It's an exciting time to be watching this field.
I'm walking away feeling super optimistic.
Me too. And for our listeners who are feeling inspired,
I encourage you to explore further.
check out those open source resources for Manna Insect.
Maybe even start your own small-scale operation.
You never know.
You might be the one to unlock the next big breakthrough in BSF farming.
That would be awesome.
Until then, keep those minds curious.
Stay tuned for more deep dives into the world's most fascinating topics.
Always something new to discover.
Always.
You know, it's incredible to think something as small as a black soldier fly could have such a big impact.
Seriously. It really makes you think about those big questions.
Like, could they really replace soy in animal feed?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
And remember, Marjanohan gave us that magic number.
Oh, yeah. $200 a ton?
For live larvae, that's the target to beat soy.
And he lays out exactly how to get there.
Free bio-waste.
Low labor costs.
And those affordable climate-controlled units.
That's the recipe.
And it's not just theory. He's seen it work.
He said in parts of Asia, right?
Yeah, where those factors are already in place. BSF is a real alternative over there.
So it's possible.
Definitely possible.
That's encouraging, right?
It is, but he's also realistic.
Like, it's not going to be easy everywhere.
No, especially in those high-cost markets.
Places where labor and infrastructure are expensive.
Yeah, that eats into your profits fast.
Makes it harder to compete.
It shows there's no one-size-fits-all solution.
You got to adapt to your circumstances, right?
Exactly. Each region has its own unique situation.
Resources, market demand, regulations, all that.
So, big question. After all this, what do you think about the future of BSF farming?
I mean, it's definitely not a niche thing anymore.
It's grown way beyond that.
It's a real industry with the potential to change how we do things.
Food production.
Waste management.
It's not just a trend, it's a movement.
Yeah, towards a more sustainable future.
And I think as research continues, we're going to see even more uses for BSF.
Oh, totally. Beyond animal feed, even.
Bioplastics, pharmaceuticals, maybe even cosmetics.
The possibilities are huge.
It's a really exciting time to be following this field.
I'm walking away feeling really optimistic.
Me too. And for anyone listening who's feeling inspired, I encourage you to explore further.
There's a ton of resources out there.
Check out Manna Insect's website. They have all those open source plans.
Connect with local producers.
Yeah. Maybe even start your own small operation.
You never know what you could discover.
You could be the next big BSF innovator.
That's the dream, right?
So, until then, keep those minds curious.
And stay tuned for more deep dives into the world's most fascinating topics.
There's always something new to learn.